All right, let's talk about it. It is the question, right? The one that probably keeps a lot of us up at night. How much money do I really need to retire? It just feels like this huge unknowable number. But today, we're going to crack it wide open.
You hear these figures all the time, don't you? $1 million, 2 million. It's so easy to get stressed out thinking there's some secret magic number you're supposed to hit. And if you don't, well, you've failed. But what if that's completely the wrong way to think about it?
Because here's the thing, the real answer isn't a number at all. It's a strategy. See, this flips the whole thing on its head. It's not just about saving up a giant pile of cash. It's about building a smart system that's going to pay you for the rest of your life. So first things first, let's officially bust this magic numbers myth. Because once you see why it's a myth, everything else is going to get a whole lot clearer.
You know, your retirement goal is deeply, deeply personal. I mean, think about it. When do you want to retire? Sooner? Later? That alone changes all the math. And what kind of life do you want to live? Are we talking quiet days, maybe gardening and spending time with family? Or are we talking about seeing the world, exploring big adventures? Those are two completely different financial roadmaps. And that brings us right to the heart of the matter. The single biggest piece of the puzzle. It's not how much you make. It's not even the savings number you're aiming for. It's your spending. That's the key. So how do we connect what you spend to what you need to save? Well, there's this really cool rule of thumb to help us out, created by a financial planner named William Bengen. It's called the 4% rule, and it's pretty simple. It says you can safely take out 4% of your savings in your first year of retirement and then adjust that amount for inflation every year after that, and you should have a really good chance of your money lasting. Okay, now this is the aha moment. Instead of starting with a savings goal, start with your spending. Look at this. If you think you'll need about $60,000 a year to live comfortably, your target is $1.5 million. But what if you want to travel more, maybe spend more on hobbies, and you need $100,000 a year? Well, suddenly your target jumps to $2.5 million. See, your lifestyle, your spending, that is what defines your number. Okay, but let's say you figured out your spending, you have your target number, you're not quite at the finish line yet. Getting to retirement is one thing, but navigating retirement itself, that can be even trickier. There are these hidden risks we have to plan for. So risk number one is something you already know about, but you might underestimate its power. It's been called the silent spoiler. I'm talking about inflation. It's like this constant, quiet drain on your money year after year after year. And this chart really shows you just how damaging it can be. Just look at the bar for 3% inflation, which is pretty normal historically. What costs you $50,000 today will feel like it costs double that in 25 years. Or to put it another way, your $50K will only have the buying power of about $23,000. It loses more than half its value. That's why your money has to keep growing, just to break even. All right, now for hidden risk number two. This one is a little less intuitive, but it is so important. It's called sequence of returns risk. And all that really means is that once you're retired, the order in which you get good and bad market returns, well, it matters a whole lot more than you think. So check this out. While you're still working in saving, what we call the accumulation phase, the order doesn't really matter. Let's look at Mary and Bob. They both start with $1 million. Mary has great returns right out of the gate, while Bob gets hit with some bad years. But since their average return over the decade is identical, look, they end up with the exact same amount of money. No harm done. But watch what happens when they retire. Okay, now they're retired and they're both taking money out to live on. This is where things get, well, scary. Mary retires into a good market, and even though she's spending, her portfolio keeps growing. But poor Bob, he retires right into a down market. And because he has to sell his investments when they're down just to pay his bills, his portfolio gets absolutely crushed. He ends up with less than half of what Mary has, even though they had the same average return. That right there is sequence risk. It is a retirement killer. So, inflation is trying to eat your money. Sequence risk is trying to wreck your portfolio. How do we fight back? Well, this is where the big shift in thinking happens. You've got to stop thinking of it as just a big pile of money and start thinking about how to create a reliable, predictable retirement paycheck. Here's a really smart, 3-part strategy. First, you cover your absolute essential expenses. We're talking your mortgage, your food, your healthcare, with a guaranteed income stream, something like an annuity. That's your safety net. Second, you build a cash buffer.
A couple years' worth of expenses parked in something safe, so you never have to sell your investments when the market is tanking. And third, you plan to be flexible. You know the difference between your needs and your wants, so you can easily dial back on the fun stuff during a down year without any real pain.
You know, I love how the financial expert Terry Savage talks about that cash buffer. She calls it chicken money. Why? Because it's the money you are too chicken to lose. It's the cash you absolutely cannot afford to risk. By keeping it in super safe places, you give your stocks and other investments time to recover after a downturn. It's a huge stress reliever.
So really, it all comes down to this. The whole point of all this planning is to create a dependable retirement paycheck. It's about building a system that you can rely on, one that gives you peace of mind and lets you sleep at night no matter what the stock market is doing on any given day.
And that brings us to the final question you should be asking yourself. It's time for a new focus. So stop asking, how much do I need to save? And start asking, how am I going to create the income I need to live the life I truly want? Because when it comes to retirement, that is the question that changes everything.